Welcome to the Village Well podcast, brought to you by Village Well Books and Coffee in downtown Culver City. Welcome back to the Village Well podcast. I'm Jennifer Casper, founder of Village Well and your host.
And I'm Josh Stratton Carlson, the producer for the Village Well podcast.
So how are you doing this week, Josh?
You know, things are getting a little better this year. My folks are starting to do some cleanup and repairs on their home that was affected by the fires.
Oh, wow. Up in the Highlands?
Yeah, and so hopefully by the year's end, they should be able to move back in.
They should be back in their home.
Yeah. Oh. It's been a tough year, but it's been nice to see the community come together. I think a lot of us who grew up in high school together or just knowing each other have really bonded. So yeah, some good things coming out of a tough year.
A tough year. The interview that we're going to play covers that too. Kathy Eldon, our guest, her home and office are right in the path of the fire and miraculously were saved. But they note that it's lonely where they are on the beach there in Topanga, that so many of their neighbors' homes are gone. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about spooky season. It is Halloween's in 2 days. And tomorrow we are hosting our second annual Village Hell Horror Short Film Festival.
Very excited. It's
going to be so cool. This is our second annual Village Hell Film Festival, and which focuses on horror films, and our fourth film festival overall. We did one focused on comedy around April Fool's Day and a summer one that was just general. And we just love being able to give local filmmakers an opportunity to share their work.
They've been big hits. Like they're pretty packed every time we do them.
It's such a fun night. Yeah. We sell drinks and popcorn, and it's just a fun night to come into Village Well and watch some short films that were made by our friends and neighbors.
Totally.
So this film festival, there's 8 films total. They range in time from 5.5 to 18 minutes. They cover the genres of paranormal horror, satirical, heartfelt, and some are straight up frightening, which I am not a horror consumer generally. I'm super intrigued by the genre and all it can help us process in our lives. But I think I can go into something knowing it's going to be the longest one's going to be 18 minutes. You know, it's like if you told me I had to go watch The Shining or The Exorcist again, I would say, I'm sorry, I just can't do that.
Same boat. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be super fun. If you don't have tickets yet and you're free tomorrow night, come on out. It's going to be super fun. Oh, I also wanted to mention another event we have coming up on Sunday night. We've got an event with one of the authors of this book, Eating Behind Bars. There are 3 authors, and the one who's going to be here is Aishatu Yusuf. The book talks about how the food that's served in prison is part of the horrible experience of being in prison. When you really look into it, it's just wrong that we're treating humans this way when we're supposed to be helping them rehabilitate and get back to society. And I'm so excited about this. She's going to be interviewed by Susan Burton, who is the founder of a New Way of Life reentry program here in Los Angeles. And she is a local woman who, had a really tough start in life. In her teenage years, she was suffering from all kinds of sexual abuse, and she ended up in prison, pregnant, in prison, in her teens. And she was in and out of that cycle of using drugs, being in prison, having children. And sometime, I read the book several years ago. It was actually one of the books that inspired me to open Village Well, because book, she has this book called Becoming Ms. Burton. And I think it's like by the time she's 30, but it might be in her 30s, she finally makes her way into a rehab program that sticks, and she gets clean and she gets on her feet. And what she does when she's out of prison and on her feet and reunited with all her kids is create halfway homes for women to move into when they move out of prison, and give them a chance to land on their feet and succeed and not cycle back into prison. And the name of her organization is A New Way of Life. And her book, Becoming Ms. Burton, is just such a beautiful telling of her story that really helped me understand, the life of this person whose life is so different from mine. But to understand how you just get into these cycles, and so many people get into cycles, and then it's so hard to break out of them.
Yeah, it should be a really powerful event. So we're excited for that.
Super excited about that. So the episode you're about to hear is a conversation I had with Kathy Eldon. And Kathy Eldon is a friend of Village Well. She was introduced to us when my friend Rick met her on an airplane and started talking to her and said, hey, you really should meet my friend Jennifer, because I think
didn't know that.
Your organization could support her bookstore.
That's so funny.
Kathy, I'm just going to read her bio. Kathy has worked as a teacher, journalist, author, and film and television producer in England, Africa, and the United States. Born in Iowa, Kathy graduated from Wellesley College, married an Englishman, moved to London, and 10 years later flew to Nairobi, Kenya with her husband and 2 children, Dan and Amy, where Kathy worked as an author and journalist in the vibrant new nation. What happens after that, her son, at age 22, went into Somalia to cover the war and died there. Job of being a photojournalist and covering some really horrible things that the world needed to know about. After that, Kathy, with her daughter Amy, they turned their grief into a really good project, memorializing Dan and his creative and very brave spirit. And what they do is they support storytelling efforts. And so they've got a foundation that supports in a variety of ways, but also by becoming their fiscal sponsor to these companies that can register as nonprofits, because they basically, they have a purpose that qualifies as a nonprofit. They're not making a profit, so they can get nonprofit status through the IRS under her umbrella of Creative Visions, and that enables them to take tax-deductible contributions from donors, and it's so helpful if you can get nonprofit status. What happened when I was introduced to Kathy was she said Village Well could qualify as a nonprofit because of the, not just the giveaways we do to help literacy in areas where access is lacking, but also just through the storytelling we do in the store. We do so much that's uncompensated here. So we have a nonprofit arm, and we can take charitable contributions, and it's all because of Kathy and being folded into her family. So our conversations covers a lot of ground, but she's such an interesting person, and she just has so much good wisdom. In this book, Boundless, that we talk about in the interview, is really just like a compendium of the wisdom she has, and she really feels this urgency to get it out into the world.
And I think there's just like a lot of overlapping values between her work and our work here, community-centered, kind of restorative, trying to support creative people. So I thought it was a great conversation.
Yeah, so great. I hope you guys enjoy it. So Kathy Eldon, welcome to the Village Well podcast.
Couldn't be more excited. Thank you.
It's great to have you here. You have been so supportive of Village Well since we first met you, and you invited us to join your foundation as a program, and we'll talk more about that. But we wanted to kick off our interview, as we do, inviting you to write a shelf talker for your book, Boundless, that we are here to talk to you about today.
If you're feeling remotely down, this is the book for you. It's really to bring a sense of not just hope, but possibility back into our lives at a time of profound chaos, disorder, disgruntlement, and discombobulation.
Well, getting to know you as we've worked together through Creative Visions and reading your book, there's so much resonant with your message for me in Village Well. At one point you used the line, we must embrace a new way of being rooted in connection, courage, and creativity, which is so just that's why Village Well exists. I always say we're a place of comfort, welcome, inspiration, and connection. And people need that in their day. We're a third place where people can come. And I if Village Well can do good in the world, it's by bringing people in, helping them to be their best self in the moments that they're here, which helps them to get to know themselves, get comfortable with themselves, use their creativity to do that, and then go out in the world and be the best version of themselves they can be.
And it's all around storytelling.
And it's all around storytelling. I just want to read the last line from your introduction to Boundless. You say, I know that together we can find the courage, connections, and creativity to navigate these times with unbounded energy and as much grace and joy as we can muster. And if you can get people by reading this book and doing the exercises in this book to do that, to explore their creativity, you're going to send them out in the world with grace and joy. And
thank you.
So we're totally on the same page. So your book, the byline on your book is Kathy Eldon and Her Noisy Spirits. So tell us about your noisy spirits.
Right. So this whole title is Boundless, a roadmap for a limitless future. And it's definitely not by me. I really don't claim it at all. I have had a very interesting relationship with what I would call another dimension. And I've always been intrigued by the possibility of energy remaining. And long time ago, I was introduced to Sylvia Browne, who is one of the more famous and maybe notorious or infamous psychics in the world. And I was in Kenya where I was a young journalist, and I was asked to interview this woman. And I was very skeptical, and it was like, whatever, I'll have to just interview her. Mm-hmm. But Sylvia disarmed me completely when she told me, how many children I had, certain things about myself that only I knew, and also said, you better be careful because there's going to be a coup in Kenya. And I kind of looked around because that was not something that you could say out loud. And we were in a hotel lobby. And I said, be quiet, don't talk about that. Anyway, she told me when it was going to happen and said, you better be careful. Well, the coup happened about 2 months later. And I realized when we got through it that Sylvia had virtually named the day that it was going to happen. And I wrote to her. In those days, we wrote letters, said, oh my goodness, you got it right. And it was kind of like, well, what do you expect? Because I know things. Sylvia went on to show me a variety of things that were just impossible that she did with PhDs and under carefully controlled circumstances. And I was like impressed and intrigued. I sadly, Sylvia went on to become highly commercial and perhaps lost her glow in many people's opinions, which is a shame. But in those early days, she had a gift, and it opened up that world to me. I had an experience that really moved me after the death of my son, Dan, who was a young photojournalist who was covering a very scary story in Somalia, having exposed the world to the fact that there was this terrible famine. And he had gone in to see whether there really was a famine. He told the story, and Operation Restore Hope happened as a result of it, saving the lives of hundreds of thousands of Somalis. So,
because of his work?
Yeah, because he was the first one in to take the photographs. And other people followed. It was really a heady experience for a 21-year-old. Dan stayed on in Somalia for another year, telling the story as the country spiraled into civil war. On the day that he was to leave, there was a terrible bombing by UN forces of a house where they believed a warlord was hiding. This is all very familiar territory. The warlord wasn't there, but the collateral damage was 200 people wounded and 80 people killed. Dan and his friends rushed to the house to tell the story. Mm-hmm. And when they got there, the people were so enraged at what had happened that they killed the journalist, four of them. So Dan was gone at the age of 22. Mm. But when I arrived in Kenya, I had a remarkable experience, which I haven't really ever told this story, a hearing in the middle of the night, a voice in my head, or really I was speaking it, was saying, Mom, go to my cupboard and find my book or find my journal, I guess it was. And I got out of bed and went down the hallway and explored in a place that I hadn't looked before. And I found 2 of his journals. And it was like, whoa. And that happened a couple of times where he led me to things that I didn't know. We could say, look, it was my subconscious, of course. And I'm not trying to be an evangelist here. I'm just sharing what happened to me.
So this was the first time that you felt like you heard spirit talking to you.
Exactly. Yeah. Where it was like,
your noisy
whoa.
Spirit.
It was a noisy spirit.
Yeah.
And I was a journalist for many years, and I like to think that my head is screwed on soundly. And following that, I produced films for CNN and PBS, and have always tried to maintain a kind of journalistic integrity and objectiveness. So later, over the years, I was directed to a medium, and it was like, what? I don't do mediums. But this particular one, Brenda Lawrence, was a leading woman in London. And the first time I went, she said, I can't guarantee anything. But she told me not only how he had died, but that we had 2 memorial services. And she said, you have to start essentially a foundation in his name. It was like, I can't get out of bed, please don't. And I said, sort of essentially, why me? And I can't possibly do it. And she said, don't worry, darling, don't worry. He'll be as close as on your shoulder, part of your team spirit. And I'll never forgot that. And I think people who've gone through loss many people experience something like a little edgy, or there's a God wink, which I've written about in Boundless.
Yeah.
Did you ever have anything like that?
I've experienced two significant losses in my life. When I was a 2.5-year-old, my sister died in a car accident. She was a year older than me. So I went through my childhood not really having processed the grief, because that's not what we did in the 70s. But later, when I had kids of my own, when I'm in my 30s, it all started bubbling up, and I really started exploring it. And at that point, when I just went into therapy to figure out, like, why don't I feel like everybody else, or like I think I'm supposed to? And what came out of it was, oh, you experienced a significant loss at a really early age, and it imprinted itself on your life, and you never got to like see it as such. It was never acknowledged in your life. So as I became aware of that, I felt like a whole like personal spiritual awakening that stage of my life. And I was seeing signs all over the place. You know, one day I was driving down the freeway to go to work downtown, and I just looked out at the sea of cars, and there was like a little white dot on each of the cars, because it was the sun reflecting on them. But I just had this, I was filled up with joy, like, oh my God, there's a soul. There's a piece of God in every one of these cars. And it just, I was having experiences like that all the time, just where,
it's magic.
Where it's magic. And, sometimes even when you're open to that kind of thing, sometimes you hear it more than others. And then when my husband died later, I went through a whole process of exploration after that. But it's funny you mentioned a psychic, because after my husband died, I got connected with the psychic medium who could connect me with him. So in our conversation, one of the things she said was, which one of you wanted to open a business or a restaurant? She said. And I said, well, that was me, but he didn't want me to. And she said, no, he's saying you should do it. You should open this business and everything's going to fall into place. And I said, well, when he was alive, he didn't think it was a good idea. She said, but everything's different now. You have everything you need and everybody around you. And once you, find the right place, everything's going to fall into place. And you have, it's kind of like what you said with, he's going to be on your shoulder.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just right there with you.
It's funny, during COVID, I personally don't really read poetry or write it or, spoken word, whatever. But during COVID, things were quiet, and I'm pretty hectic. Normally I'm kind of I mentioned before, a restless spirit. But I woke up one night with this poem in my head, and it was pretty almost complete.
Yeah.
But it was imagination, this new creation. It was really this imagination of what we could create together if we all got on the same page.
Is that poem in the book?
Yeah, it's the very last poem. And
Can you read it?
I'd love to, yeah. This is a kind of just so simple, but just imagine it now if we could get us together. Imagine a nation, a new creation, united in peace and love. Imagine a nation, our creation, disruption, dispelling corruption, igniting positive change. Imagine the world as this nation, community powering unity over time and space. Imagine this unity sparking opportunity across generations and race. Imagine this nation, a new creation bringing joy and grace. Imagine this nation. Imagine it now. Our creation, our nation. So what's your part and how?
That's
so
great.
That was the first one. That's
Yeah.
kind of earnest and serious, which a lot of them aren't. But it was like, I don't do that. Where did it come from?
Yeah. This book is full of these poems, but you say you don't normally write poetry.
And what they tickle, and then they start coming through, and then they're done. It's like the channel that the radio station is turned off. And then I haven't written much since this book came out, but I have one tickling me right now, which is, I don't want to dwindle when I'm old. No dwindling, please.
Is that a poem?
It's going to be.
It's going to be a poem about.
I was working on what rhymes with dwindle, swindle or.
Yeah.
It's a problem, but we'll come up with something.
Right. So when I hear noisy spirits, I think of those times in life when I feel like my intuition is flowing in a way that I can't miss it. Your intuition's, I assume it's always flowing, but we get busy or distracted and we don't notice it. But I imagine that some people, either because of their neurochemistry or their practice or their behavior, are more in touch with it than others. And I wonder for you, because you talked about first hearing that kind of hearing a spiritual voice in your 40s, in midlife. And now you're writing this book, and it seems the way you're writing it, like some of this has come to you recently, like this idea of it. So I wonder, are your spirits noisier now, or have they always been with you? What's been your journey of,
what a great
of
question.
hearing these?
Back in the day, I read a book called Living in the Light by Shakti Gawain, which was revelatory for me because it was a way of living. And she also wrote creative visualization. And she talked about the power of our minds and our intuition and how to listen within, and also how to go with the flow. Is that we cannot control our lives, but we have to go with whatever is. And then, it's not Pollyanna, but it's going to make it the best thing we can possibly do, but trust in that universal flow and that it's happening for us, not against us, which is really hard at times to conceive of that. I read every single book that I could read at the time. I was living in England, and there was a bookshop in Camden Town that I just haunted, here at the Village Well, and bought every book I could afford, which was very broke at the time. But read and read and read, and it shifted my gears completely. And I was very broken at that time. Broken. I'd left Africa and my husband, and it was really a hard time. Often spiritual awakening seems to come at a time when we are broken open. And I talk about that here too. But then you kind of get back to life, and life got busy, and then Dan was killed, and I moved to Los Angeles to try to make a feature film about him and his friends. And I kind of drifted away from being awakened to, I'm very woke. Definitely sound very woke, but being awakened to that energy. And it's really only more recently that I'm not afraid of talking about it too. Because back in the day, I thought people would think I'm crazy. I don't want to talk about it. But I wrote a memoir actually called In the Heart of Life with HarperCollins. And my editor was saying, are you sure you want to talk about this stuff? And there were two themes that they wanted me to cut. And one was eating disorders, which I struggled with early in life. And the second one was another dimension. And I insisted that we keep them in because I think they're more universal than maybe she realized at the time.
Yeah.
I think every woman I know and a lot of other folks
has had an eating disorder.
Yeah. Exactly. But we didn't, I guess, I don't know. But now I think I'm fearless. I think you get to a certain point, you think, stuff it. What have I got to lose? I have nothing to lose. I recently was with Jane Goodall, who was the gutsiest, suffered fools, didn't suffer fools. But I want that as my exemplar going forward in this world where to speak out can be dangerous, but I want to be brave.
And you feel like your voices are encouraging you
Absolutely.
to do that. And the leader of your voices is your son, Dan.
He's the cheerleader. Noisy. Yep.
Yeah.
And he's very funny.
He's very funny. Tell me about how he's funny.
He was always very funny, but I think that the lightness of touch, and Boundless is not a heavy book. I read you probably one of the more challenging to us. But you were talking about creativity a minute ago, and I'm just going to read the very beginning, but it's called Tap in the Sky. And why have my creative juices run dry? My cosmic tap in the sky has been reduced to a trickle, leaving me in a pickle, unable to draw, write, or even scribble. Although I know it's inappropriate to quibble about a lack of alien transmittal, why say I did the tap run dry when I try to do everything right? I'm in bed by 11, up at 7. I eat sensible meals, low on carbs, sugar, and salt, so having a dull mind shouldn't be my fault. And then I go on as to all the things that I'm doing right. But I'm so boring.
You're so boring?
In this, the point
There's
of this
no
is
voice.
You have to challenge yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. And in this instance, it was like, go places you've never been before.
Right.
And even if you can't, then it's a staycation and still do it, at home.
Yeah.
But we can't be boring if you expect to be creative.
You can't be boring.
No.
Right. But you do have to kind of be still
You can
a
be
lot
still,
of the time.
But your mind has to be open.
Yeah.
Not like a rigid block that's going to block out all that juicy stuff that wants to come in.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we haven't said about this book, it's full of poems, but it's an invitation to the reader to journal.
Yeah,
and
very
to
much
do
so.
what I'm assuming you have been a journaler.
I was absolutely for decades, even before Dan started journaling. But by the way, I don't like poetry books. So every time anybody calls me a poet, I love the fact that poetry books exist and that poets are amazing.
Yeah.
But I also think, oh my God, they're not going to want to read the people who don't feel comfortable with poetry. So this has got narrative. And it's got very whimsical sort of Dr. Seuss.
Right. I read the book quickly, so I didn't take time to follow the prompts too.
Yes.
But,
No, of course.
it sounds like such a lovely indulgence. I'm going to go on a vacation next month, and I think I might bring this with me and just make myself an appointment in a couple early mornings to just sit down and spend time, responding to some of these questions. And there, I've been through grief groups and I've been in therapy, and I know I've done journaling. For a while, I did the, Julia Cameron, Morning Pages. And I know how journaling is such a wonderful way to center yourself. But your questions are great prompts for that. So, I just opened to a random page. When was the last time you had a gut feeling, heard a nudge from your inner voice, or noticed a God wink? And then you've given us a blank page with just 2 prompts. What did it say and what did you do? And, just sitting down and journaling is such just a healthy habit.
Cathartic. That all came from a series of books we did for Chronicle.
Okay.
And the first one was Angel Catcher. And 2 years after Dan had been killed, Amy and I were still desolate. And you'll understand that. Everybody says, right, we've done the first year, first Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
The second year is
harder. Yeah.
And I said to Amy, why don't you just capture everything you remember, because she was forgetting, because it's harder because you're starting to forget how their voice sounded, what they used to say. So she went off to college with a little book, and I said, just fill it with everything you remember. It's like an angel catcher. This is your angel catcher. And then we had just done The Journey as Destination, the books about Dan with Chronicle.
That book is his journals, right?
Completely.
So he was a journaler.
Oh, yeah. He was inspired by Peter Beard, who lived in Kenya a lot and did the most extraordinary journals. Mm-hmm. And they're very famous. And Dan used to go hang out with Peter. And so his first journals are very reminiscent of Peter's work. But after he was killed, we discovered 20 journals all over the world. There are 4 books, 3 documentaries, and a feature film that have happened as a result of Dan. And they're not me pushing. It's he died at 22, but he had so much to say in the world. So much
to say.
And he's inspired countless people around the planet that I will never know. The journaling is something that's inherent to us. So when Amy came home with this angel catcher that she had done, we did a proposal for the editor at Chronicle, and she had just lost her dad. And she burst into tears when she read the first page, which I feel scared or something. I can't remember what it was. And that book is still a bestseller.
Is it a journal?
Yeah.
Like Angel Catcher is a book you would buy and use it like
prompts
for your practice.
It's to get through grief and to try to get to the other side where you are finding new purpose and meaning in your own life. It's kind of different from most grieving journals, which there were none when we did this. Is 2002. But we went on to do Soul Catcher, which was finding your purpose. And then we did Love Catcher because we didn't have the right love in our lives. So we actually did Love Catcher.
Yeah.
And with this big list of what we wanted in our men. And she wanted funny, and I wanted larger than life, travel the world, do all this stuff. And I ended up with this guy who was just like tick off most of the list. Yeah. Two things I left off.
Yeah.
But he was renting his beach house. Believe it or not, a beach house in Malibu. Who knew I'd get that? But he was renting his other beach house to John Turtletub, who was directing National Treasure at the time.
Okay.
He'd done Cool Runnings. Amy met John, fell in love.
Oh.
And Amy lives next to me all these years. Mm-hmm. So check out Love Catcher. It's very good.
Oh, no, I definitely will. I'm going to get it for the store so we can put it on
thank you.
display
I love
too.
That.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell me about your relationship with Amy. And first of all, how is it different from your relationship with Dan, like as kids and young adults? And now you've had this long adult, very close mother-daughter friendship with Amy.
Dan and I bounced off of each other.
Okay.
I think Dan and I were probably really similar, or are really similar. He, restless spirit, much funnier than I, but he was always challenging things. Amy and I are both Cancerian. We flow. I've really hardly ever had an argument with her.
Uh-huh.
You know, we just, if we do, back in the day when I moved to LA to make this film, and then she graduated and had a project that we were doing together that turned into an Emmy-nominated film called Dying to Tell the Story about journalists at risk. When she moved in and we were working together, we had to learn how to deal with that. And you and Ellie have done that here.
Yes,
I believe, too.
my daughter and I, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's also Cancerian, as you say. Yeah, she is easy to get along with.
We're so nice.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's probably I'm proud of, being Cancerian. But honestly, we have had an extraordinary relationship because she is living next door to me with 3 now, 18, 15, and 10-year-old. And we've learned, again, what she really doesn't like are lots of suggestions. She said, Mom, just create a suggestion box, put it in once a week and I'll clean it out. And, and I get that. So, but we, she's my best friend and the reason I dedicate the book to her, and my husband, of course, and the grandchildren. But God, when you can get that right with a daughter, and you clearly with your 2 girls have done that, and it's trusting them, I think.
That's great. It's great that you've had this long and working relationship with her. So talk about Creative Visions, your foundation that you created in Dan's memory. Was that a project you and Amy did together?
Well, I started Creative Visions Productions in 1990. Without Amy, I did a film on ivory poaching. I had been living in Kenya, and I saw the power of film when I was allowed onto the set of Out of Africa with Sidney Pollack and Redford and Meryl Streep.
Wow.
And it was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. What's possible? And so I was very lucky to apprentice with a film producer, and Creative Visions managed to produce a major feature film, horribly difficult, awful challenges, but I did it. And that's in my memoir, the miraculous story of how that one happened. But we went on when Amy came to America. We did produce Dying to Tell the Story, which was her idea when she was at Boston University. But then we went on to produce a number of films with CNN, Soldiers of Peace, a children's crusade about the children's peace movement in Colombia. Then a 3-part series for PBS called Global Tribe that Amy hosted. And then we did one for Oprah Winfrey, which was called Extraordinary Moms, with Julia Roberts and Hillary Clinton, Rosie O'Donnell, Christiane Amanpour. But during that time, I realized that I wanted to create truly a foundation that would celebrate creative activism. And that is the power to use your creativity, whatever spark you have. Anybody listening, you all have a spark of, you may think you don't, but you do. And to use that not only for yourselves, but for others. We focus on people who are about storytelling. So how do you tell story, art, music, dance, drama, film, whatever it is that you are doing to tell stories that can create an impact in the world and make people want to do something different, better.
And how do you talk about how you support the programs?
Yes. Well, we have 2 divisions. One is Impact Education, and Bezos Family Foundation gave us a $6.5 million grant to take over their Students Rebuild project. A really extraordinary project where young people use their creative expression around issues that matter. So that one is supported by Bezos Family Foundation. Our other side is Impact Media, where we have more than 300 projects and productions under our umbrella so that they can get a nonprofit status. And then we'll do what we can. And we've got a lot of projects, so we can't do it with everybody, but to help support their vision, their creative vision. And we have everything from Navalny, which won the Oscar 2 years ago, about Alexei Navalny, to the most incredible projects that have come out of the fires. We have 15 projects in Altadena, Palisades, and Malibu.
Okay, so back up for 1 second. What was your role on Navalny?
We came in as the impact producers. So the funding for the impact campaign came through Creative Visions. I actually rolled up sleeve quite a lot on that particular one. And the 6 of the members of the team had stayed with us when they had no money and no director. I mean, they were really broke. And it was a scary time. They just won Sundance and 2 awards at Sundance. And the editor I met and I said, well, what's next? I was at a dinner party. And he said, we don't even know where we're sleeping tomorrow night. And I said, oh, come home. I've got plenty of space, thinking there was 1 of them or 2 of them. 6 of them joined us.
Yes.
And so I fell in love with them and everything they were doing and the Navalny family. And so that one really tried to help wherever I could.
And then the other projects you just mentioned were relating to this year's fires. So your home and your daughter's home that you've referred to were right in the path of the Palisades fire this year. So
we were in such disbelief because my husband had lived on Topanga Beach since 1964.
And on beach, meaning on the west side of PCH, right?
Right, where the ocean is rising, it slams against our seawall. And so the fires had never jumped the PCH. That was the kind of legend. Of course it won't come. So I sat, I was back and forth from 10 in the morning on January 7th, kind of charting the progress of the fires and working with this lovely homeless guy that was my friend on the beach, saying, well, it's coming closer. Anyway, we ended up on our veranda of Creative Visions, which is right the most.
So your home and your daughter's home and the office of Creative Visions are all together.
Right next door. Mm-hmm. And we ended up retreating to the veranda under the yellow awnings, looking down at our house on the right and across the street to Chelada and the Real Inn on the left. And suddenly the fire was literally across the street. Mm-hmm. So we jammed into the elevator, totally foolishly, and went down. And at that point, I ran to get the homeless guy. I said, come, with me. And as I passed through the gate to the public part of the beach and the fires we could see across the street, I heard in my voice, don't worry, Mom, everything's going to be all right. Yeah. I literally told Scott, my homeless friend, this is what I'm hearing. It's going to be fine. And we bundled him in the car, and we all departed from Manhattan Beach. And over the next 4 days, everything, 321 houses along PCH burned, along with everything else.
But not yours.
But our neighbors stayed behind and for 4 days fought the fires, and embers were up for 4 days and nights. And Scott, we brought back to the house. He did the remediation for the center and for a house. Mm-hmm. He bought a truck. He got new teeth, and now he's got a phenomenal job. That's the happiest. And a home. He's got a 2-bedroom as part of his job. So, that to me is like, and he said none of this would happen without the fires.
Right.
And a lot of horror. There's so much horror.
Right.
But now we have to look at what are we going to find? What are the phoenixes that can rise from these ashes?
Yeah, there always are. So are you back in that building now?
We finally got back after 7 months of being away. Mm-hmm. And it's lonely. Amy and I are the only ones on our block. Okay. And there are a lot of folks who kind of wander down the road, and it can be a bit scary. Mm-hmm. The center is now going to be the Renaissance Center for that community, and offering it for free wherever possible to whomever needs.
This is your Creative Visions office?
Yeah.
What is the space like?
It's about 4,000 square feet. It's beautiful. Plenty of offices.
Okay.
People don't work from offices much anymore, so we're not overly utilizing it.
Right.
So I want to make it available, especially for the creative community. People are lonely,
Yeah. And give them a space, like a place to go, like Village Well, a third place to go and connect with other people. And
the walking in here, it's just like everything I want to do. And we're packed with books. So I have the book part.
Yeah.
But what you've done here is exactly what I want to try to replicate.
That's so great. It's what people need now. I mean, whether their community has been decimated by a fire or not, everybody is lonely and disconnected in their home and wants to come out and find people in real life.
The former Surgeon General,
Vivek Murthy,
said, he wrote that beautiful book about the loneliness.
Yeah, I think it's called Together.
That's right. Stunning. Absolutely. Yeah, we need to be together.
We need to be together. It's just part of human nature. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, why did you write this book now? And why did you do it the way you did it, self-publishing versus working with one of those major publishing houses that you've used in the past? What is it about this moment?
Why now? I've worked, I've done many books with wonderful publishing houses. Takes 2 years. Maybe a year nowadays. But it takes a long time to get them out. This book, from my perspective, is really important to get out now, at a time when we're going through so much sadness, grief, chaos, despair, discombobulation. We need roadmaps, I think. And I say it's a roadmap. I even have a compass. It's called a Spark Compass. Yeah. It's really fun. It's what's your story? What's your purpose? And what's your adventure, achievement? And how are you going to do it with resilience? Because it's really hard. And then the last one in the center is the K words or co words, like kind. You got to be kind to yourself, and you got to be kind to the world. Yeah. Compassion, creativity, courage. So this sense that it's urgent. And I am one person, but if I can turn a light on with other folks around me and it can spread, we have a chance at lighting up the world. And right now we're in a very dark space. So I couldn't wait. It's hard work doing this.
Together. And I mean, you talk about that the idea came to you during the fire.
Yes.
We're still in the same year that the fire happened. And here we are holding this book, and it's been out for several months.
Yeah.
So urgency, I definitely get that.
Thank you.
There's so much like wisdom. There's so much practical wisdom in there that just the more you live, you really understand these lessons that people have been telling you your whole life. Like, slow down, take a deep breath. But it really is an invitation to do that and to, have patience with yourself, be kind. You don't use the word meditation very often or maybe at all in the book, but I think it's, it's about that. Know yourself, love yourself.
Yep.
Do that through creativity.
Yep.
And then you'll be happier and a better version of yourself. The other thing I wanted to comment was it is not religious, but it is like a secular spiritual guide. So I'm curious about your religious background. Were you raised with the religion?
Absolutely. I was born a Methodist and I married my husband, first husband's Jewish.
Okay.
My current husband is probably more of I think he does believe, but he pretends that he doesn't. There's a very important poem in here, which is essentially, it's called Insane Isms. And if I just read you the very beginning, you'll get the essence of what I believe, I think. It goes like this. The golden rule for Sikhs and Christians, Muslims and Jews is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You'll find this rule in the teachings of most of humankind. So why don't humans try to be kind and heed Gandhi's works, an eye for an eye, and the whole world becomes blind. So if we look at the essence of religion, many religions are starting with just do unto others. And I think I strongly believe in the teachings of Jesus in the sense of that, again, do unto others. And Buddha and Islam, the essence of it. I run into trouble with bureaucracy sometimes, and
understandably,
and often a male, dominance of spiritual teachings, and I think that the essence is really within us and connected to this phenomenal consciousness that is around us.
Did you raise your kids with Methodist Christianity?
No, we didn't. We were very much about the do unto others. If you can raise children to be kind and thoughtful and whatever belief that they will imbue, but I don't think Jesus would be happy with what is being taught right now to many people in his name. So it's all fine. Whatever everybody else wants to believe, go for it. Just enjoy it, but be kind.
Yeah. Well, I just really enjoyed your book so much. You made references to all these great wise humans, Emily Dickinson, the Oracle at Delphi, Martha Graham, Mother Teresa, Teddy Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, Michelle Obama, Winston Churchill, Gandhi, RBG. There's a great scene near the end of the book where you describe Dan kind of convening this council of noisy spirits, and all these voices are there to tell you these wonderful lessons.
So glad you read that. That's honestly one of my favorite things in the entire book, and I don't know that anybody gets to that. It's like, I love that so much. It's so funny. There's also another really funny one. Do you remember the one about, listen to this, a final thought. Hunter Thompson once said, life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside, thoroughly used up, worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride. I love that so much.
I see that in you, yeah. And the other one before you go is John Lewis. And you come back to him multiple times in the book, talking about getting into good trouble, and that Dan is probably whispering on your shoulder, go get in some good trouble.
I love that you thought so. I got to meet him.
You got to meet John
I did
Lewis,
before he died, and he was just booming out about get into good trouble, trouble every day. And I think it really made a deep impact on me. And I would urge everybody out there to make more good trouble.
Yeah.
We need good trouble.
Yeah. My husband, Eric, before we moved to Los Angeles, we lived in DC, and he was a legislative assistant on Capitol Hill, and he met John Lewis, and he would talk about, oh my God, there's this one guy. I mean, he loved meeting there were so many inspirational members of Congress back then.
Yeah.
And that was one of them that he was really happy to meet.
Lucky him.
Yeah, lucky him. I know.
You know, everybody we meet leaves an imprint. Mm-hmm. And that's what Jane Goodall was saying, is what impact do you want to make and on others, you know? And I think we've got to try a little harder to make good trouble, make good impacts on people around you and care about people.
Yeah, that's the way we can all be activists, like just 100%. Every moment of our life.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. So we close our interviews by asking our guests to recommend books. Do you have a couple books that you would recommend that speak to you and what we've talked about here with your book, Boundless?
Well, today, just because I'm in this kind of crazy state of revisiting other dimensions, I'm going to be kind of boringly focused. I picked up a book from my bookshelf last night called Real Magic by Dean Radin, PhD, really looking at the nature of consciousness and that it's a thing. And therefore, it is possible that you can have telepathy, you can have psi, PSI. And I found it very interesting because he's operating from a very scientific basis. Also very excited about A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And so late to reading him. Oh my goodness. Should have done it years ago.
Yeah.
What a remarkable fellow. And then one that's just vintage, but I used to give it out like candy to people, but Living in the Light by Shakti, Gawain and Creative Visualization. Those were kind of like living in the light for 101. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Eckhart Tolle 101. But for me, it was really revelatory and shaped the way I live my life. And the concept of creative visualization led to creative visions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Very specific today. Would have been different tomorrow.
All right. Well, Kathy Eldon, thank you so much for joining us. And
so much fun.
Look forward to doing more good, troubling work with you in the future.
Seriously, lots of trouble. Thank you.
If you'd like more information from us, check out the show notes or send us an email at podcast@villagewell.com. You can always order the books mentioned through our website. This episode of the Village Well podcast is brought to you by Village Well Books and Coffee. It was produced and edited by Josh Stretton Carlson, and our theme music is from Noah Vickland. See you next week, and keep reading.